What up, world? Welcome to episode 110 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast, NFL Draft Round 1 Recap Edition. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the beautiful and warm confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, Patreon, Trovo, and as well as on Podbean. Looking to get out this weekend, looking to take your spouse out, have a great time with some friends, then look no further than the number one leading ticket seller and reseller in the world, StubHub. Number one seller in the world for live events, tickets, shows, and concerts, StubHub. Thank you guys, as always, for plugging in. I do apologize. I was supposed to do an episode yesterday. I was dealing with some sinus pressure that kind of took me out, but I was still able to get the information and give you a jam-packed episode today. So I'm definitely excited and willing and ready to plug in with you guys. Before we get started, though, I definitely want to make sure we give a shout out to one of the friends of the show. Within the links, it will be a link in the description of this video for PlayStation Direct. If you are looking to get anything as far as like a PlayStation 5, bundle packages, anything that you're like, that you may like pertaining to PlayStation, I would definitely implore you to check in the link in the description in this video. More than a game, it's PlayStation. I love it. I've been a PlayStation fan and member of Sony PlayStation since 1996. So I would implore you, definitely. It's well worth it. The products, Sony has stood the test of time. That being said, guys, we're going to hop right into this episode. Amazing draft. For all the speculation and bullshit that was spoken over the past few months, who may go where, what may happen with this guy and that guy, I must say, I'm glad whenever it's never chalked. Meaning, you hear that term a lot, meaning like, what they say, they staple in is this guy's going to go here, this guy's going to go in there, pencil that in, chalk that in, that terminology. I'm glad it didn't fall to the that, suspected or expected outcome last night. There was a lot of good things. First, we're going to start with the Tennessee Titans. Of course, they selected quarterback Cam Ward out of Miami. We all knew he was going to be the number one pick. I think he didn't get some of the hype and some of the love early on, strictly because there was so much talk about Shedeur, which I will touch on in this episode. But Cam Ward, number one selection. This was needed. Titans definitely needed a quarterback. And if you saw the comments from Mike Borgzani, the GM of the Titans, stating that Will Levis is a quarterback in their room at this point. Yeah, Will Levis is done. And this is going to be Cam Ward's job to lose. So be that as it may, no shocks there. Number two was where the shock came in. We all were hearing for weeks that the Browns were going to take Travis Hunter. And if you're a football fan like myself, or if you're a diehard that's just into this stuff, you know for a fact that didn't make sense. Now, the reason it didn't make sense is because Travis Hunter, electric player, two-way player, it has the potential to be a very, great player. However, the Browns have more holes than cornerback and wide receiver. They need linemen, they need linebackers, they need edge rushers. I mean, they need everything. So to find out that for a month, this trade with the Jaguars had been on hold, and it was the Jaguars, and you kept hearing about Liam Cohen and Jeff Gladstone talking about making a splash. I read the article this morning in The Athletic. I definitely implore you to check it out, where, basically Shad Khan, owner of the Jaguars, is like, let's make history. And I believe they did, because this was a great selection. They went up all the way up to number two, swapped with the Browns to select Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is going to be the type of guy to put asses in seats in Jacksonville. That's what they needed. The team was boring. And when you're bad and boring, that's a combination for losing money and potentially, losing a franchise, honestly. Or the franchise possibly moving elsewhere. So the Jaguars needed this. This is going to breathe, life and fresh, air into that franchise. I like what Gladstone did. I like how Tony Baselli and these guys, aggressive move that Jacksonville needed to do. It seems like they've always been great at stockpiling draft picks, which was something Shad Khan had previously mentioned in that interview, in that article. And he's right. Use these picks to actually get some guys that's actually going to help you. That's the whole point of the damn draft picks. Don't just stockpile them. Great selection by the Jaguars. The Giants, getting Abdul Carter. This was a no-brainer. He was the best player on the board. Edge rush out of Penn State. Local kid. He's from Philly, but, played at Penn State. So Giants got a surefire prospect there. Patriots went and got Will Campbell, a tackle out of LSU. No shock there. That I've been screaming all offseason. They need to get protection for Drake May. They clearly did it in the draft. Great selection by Vrabel and the guys. Number 5, the Browns, after swapping with the Jaguars, a 2nd and 5th pick. The Browns essentially got Mason Graham, the defensive tackle they are going to use to pair up with Myles Garrett on the edge. Good selection there, in my opinion. The surprise, though, outside of the number 2 selection, for me, this was definitely a surprise. The Raiders getting ashtonjeanty. Now, it's not that ashtonjeanty, running back out of Boise State, it's not that I thought he wasn't a good player. I thought, he was going to go in the top 10. But I didn't think the Raiders were going to get him. But it makes sense. I mean, you lost Josh Jacobs a year ago. He clearly played well in Green Bay. You haven't really replaced him. Your running game was ineffective as all hell last year. So definitely a great move if you're the Raiders. They needed a running back like this. Now, you got to make sure that the offensive line is right. And this is going to help Geno too. So it's a lot of things that play into this. So I definitely like the selection. It just surprised me that the Raiders made this move. But new regime, taking new chances. We're going with the 7 with the Jets. Another a shocking surprise here. Not shocking surprise at the player, but shock at the selection from the new regime. The Jets selected Armand Membu, offensive tackle out of Missouri. Armand Membu, in my opinion, was one of the best tackles in this draft. It says a lot to me that the Jets went up there and got him because that just shows Aaron Glenn and the GM's, he has a weird name. I forget his name right now. It's drawing a blank on me, but these guys have pretty much put 2 and 2 together and realized we got to get big up front. We got to have protection for this quarterback. So I like the selection. Definitely good there. The biggest surprise outside of Travis Hunter, though, in my opinion, T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona, going to the Panthers. Now, I've been hearing speculation. I read a lot of articles going throughout this mock draft season. Read a lot of articles going into talking about how the Panthers wanted to get playmakers for Bryce Young. They clearly saw that, he had a horrible rookie year. He got benched last year. He bounced back, played well. Almost had an upset win in Philadelphia. Almost had an upset win against the Kansas City Chiefs. Played well last year. He needs playmakers. Adam Thielen is 400 years old. You've heard me say that. You've heard me mention before in previous videos that they definitely wanted to get a guy. I think this was a great selection. He's still raw, still a lot of things he's got to learn, but his catch radius is so wide that should help Bryce Young with some of those errant throws that may happen depending on the pass rush or, if he has to get out the pocket. So good selection, pairing him up with Lockett. Thielen is still there, so they'll have a veteran to learn from. Definitely a good selection by the Panthers. No ill will there, just definitely a shock. This one is not a shock as far as much as a bewilderment. Kelvin Banks, a tackle out of Texas, going to the Saints at number 9. Little thrown off here because I get it. You got to get linemen. I mean, without linemen, you can't do shit. But in all honesty, you don't even really have a quarterback. So, again, maybe they're going to grab a guy today. Second round starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can check it out on ESPN, ABC, NFL Network, and also on Fubo. But yeah, I just thought that, they definitely got to get a quarterback within one of these next couple of selections. You cannot tell me you're confident in Derek Carr's situation, him low-key threatening you. And if you guys haven't seen that, check that video out that I've, talked about with that situation before the draft. If you're the Saints, you really have to test and think that you got to get a quarterback in this draft. I know you like Spencer Rattler. I know Kellen Moore is there. Kellen Moore might feel like he could rectify this guy. I don't really feel like Spencer Rattler is that good of a quarterback, but we'll see. We'll see. Kellen Moore, he's not known as a quarterback whisperer, but he does seem to get guys to play at a better level. So we'll see from there. But Kelvin Banks was a selection for the Saints. This one was not a shock to me. This one made the most sense. The Chicago Bears at number 10, selecting Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. Playmaker, big guy, great hands. Somebody that could eventually be the Cole Kmet replacement, but definitely somebody you could pair with Cole Kmet now. Love the selection. I love what the Bears have been doing all offseason as far as their moves. They definitely are going to be a better team this year. How much better, I don't know yet, but getting Colston Loveland definitely goes a long way. Going a bit further, this one is probably the most shocking. Micah Williams, Georgia, edge rusher, going to the 49ers at 11. I understand where some people are with this because they're like, well, it makes sense. You know, they got to get defense. They got to get younger on defense. The 49ers have so many holes. Michael Williams, not a bad player. I definitely didn't think he was going 8th to the Panthers. I mean, I knew he'd probably be a top 15 pick. That's not the selection of where he went. It's the place that he went to. I think the 49ers are a great organization as far as, you know, building young talent, building guys that'll run through a wall. But this guy wasn't really he wasn't even the best player on that. Don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Thanks. For the roster, to be completely honest with you. So I'm kind of shocked that they kind of went with him at that pick, but it smells like a John Lynch, you know, pick. So we'll see. We'll see how things play out, but definitely a little perplexing there. The one that really made me laugh the most, the Cowboys selecting guard Tyler Booker out of Alabama. And it's not no knock on Tyler Booker. It's strictly on Micah Parsons' fucking reaction on Bleacher Report last night. For those of you who didn't get a chance to see it, I have the quotes here you'll see on the screen. But there will be a link in the description that you can check out. Make sure you see it. I love Micah Parsons during the draft for this one reason. He is a great barometer at letting me know how badly the Cowboys organization is doing with their draft picks. For the past few years, he's been doing this Bleacher Report thing where, you know, during the draft, he's commenting on the picks and the players, giving his opinion. One of the great players in football, top 5 defenders. So, you know, his opinion carries weight. The fact that he was banking on Tetairoa McMillan, T-Mac being there, and he wasn't, and they wound up getting a lineman, and then he's trying to play recovery later, saying he liked the pick. It just goes loud to speak volumes loud and clear that the message being conveyed between the front office and the locker room are not the same. What Micah has envisioned for building this team and getting this team up and what the front office sees are two totally different things, which commonly does happen, where that's not the most perplexing thing. It's just funny as hell because it's a true barometer into their locker room and into that organization. They don't really have a plan, guys. And Micah is screaming for talent. He is screaming. He's been screaming for the past couple of years, get talent, get talent, get talent. He sees Philly grabbing talent. He sees Washington grabbing talent. He sees other teams in the NFC grabbing talent, Packers included. And what are the Cowboys doing? This is another year they grabbed the offensive lineman because why? The offensive lineman they grabbed last year didn't really work out. And the lineman before that, you know, one guy. I mean, you know, it's like you're making a lot of safe picks instead of making selections that are actually going to help this organization. Now, again, I think Tyler Booker wound up being a good player for the Cowboys, but they definitely got to get something within these next couple of rounds to get this fan base some type of hope going to the future because it is not looking good. It is not looking good for Dallas. Number 13, the Dolphins select Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. I love Kenneth Grant as a run stopper. He's one of the best raw athletes they had on their defense. So the Dolphins, this is eventually going. This is what they hope will be the Christian Wilkins replacement. I said Watkins. They hope this will be the Christian Wilkins replacement. So be that as it may, shout out to Kenneth Grant. Number 14, great pick right here by the Colts. Chris Ballard knew he had to hit this. Tyler Warren out of Penn State, tight end. Great pass catcher. Athlete of the highest order, definitely a good jump ball catcher for a tight end. Whoever is the quarterback, Richardson, Daniel Jones, whoever the fuck is in that position, I think, hands down, they're going to benefit tremendously by having this guy out there. To look at the numbers, and this kind of shocked me. I read this pretty athletic. The Colts haven't had an outstanding season by a tight end since Eric Ebron in 2018. Newsflash, Eric Ebron is no longer in the NFL. So be that as it may, this was needed. This was needed. Great move by the Colts. Number 15, you got the Falcons taking Jalen Walker. Obviously one of the best edge rushers in Georgia on that team. Went to the Falcons. Falcons needed this. Thought they would have took Mike Green from Marshall, but I'm kind of hoping he might slide to Philly in the second round. We'll see how things play out. Number 16, the Cardinals getting Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. I love this selection because this screams Jonathan Gannon. This screams his mindset, his mantra. This is a guy that he probably thinks is in that Fletcher Cox type of ilk. I think Walter Nolan has some questions. However, I think he's a good pass rusher. Going to the Cardinals, there was no shock there. However, I did think he was probably going to go a little bit later. But again, screams Jonathan Gannon. Number 17, Bengals getting Shamar Stewart. Definitely think he went a little bit higher than he should have been, but knowing the Bengals situation with edge rushers, you just had Sam Hubbard retired, Trey Hendrickson on the fence, you had to make this move. This was a draft for need type move. Next, number 18 would be the Seattle Seahawks. We're getting Gray Zabel. I liked Gray Zabel a lot out of North Dakota State guard. I think he's going to be, he has the potential to be a very great player. Not just the name, just the way he plays itself. And I love that Seattle got him. They needed this guy in the fold. They were bereft of guard play. Tackles, they've seemed to kind of figure out the guards have been an issue for them for several years. So definitely like the selection there. This one pissed me off, number 19, because I like this guy a lot. I was kind of hoping he fell a little bit, but, you know, he wasn't leaving the first round. Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State wide receiver went to the Bucs at number 19. This guy is a beast. You know, played with Jackson Smith and Jigba, played with Marvin Harrison. You know, he was a mentor to their young wide receiver, the young star wide receiver at Ohio State this year. So I think this guy's going to be a hit out the gate. They needed this, though, because let's be honest, Chris Godwin, though they just gave him the bag this offseason, he's older, injury prone. Mike Evans, even though he's still having 1,000-yard seasons, older. You got to start getting a replacement in there. You got to start getting that guy to start, you know, to take the next step. So I love this selection by the Bucs. They keep getting better, definitely through the draft. Number 20, this was a bit shocking because I thought the Broncos were going to probably go running back here. They didn't. The Broncos took Jahdae Brown, corner out of Texas, one of the best corners in the draft. I think he got selected higher just because Will Johnson had some injury concern issues. I thought Maxwell Harrison would have went here, but Jahdae Brown seems more of a Sean Payton style of guy, so makes sense. Good selection. This next one, number 21, was probably the most perplexing. The Steelers taking Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. Now, we all know there was a lot of speculation Shedeur Sanders might go to this spot. No guarantees, but might. This pick screams Mike Tomlin. And it just speaks to the issue of this team. I like Derek Harmon. I think Derek Harmon is the Cam Hayward replacement. I'm not even upset at the selection. However, if you don't get a quarterback in one of these next two rounds, you're going to get scrutinized. Because the fact that Shedeur was there, you didn't take him in the first round. Okay, you took Derek Harmon. He's going to be there today in the second round. If they even have him that high on the board, who knows? But it is going to be a major question as to if he goes to either Pittsburgh, Cleveland, or New Orleans. So they got Derek Harmon. I like him. Think he's going to be the Cam Hayward replacement, but very interesting to see how this shakes out. Number 22 is the Chargers, getting dynamic running back Amarion Hampton out of North Carolina. I like this selection a lot. I think this guy's an electric back, something that Justin Herbert is needed in that backfield. He had more of a bruising style of backs with, Edwards and Vidal, but really needed a real change of pace style of back. I like this selection from them. So getting Amarion Hampton is great. Loved it. Number 23, a legitimate surprise. The Packers selecting Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Now, I must admit here, things are kind of telltale. Matt LaFleur was on Rich Eisen's podcast earlier yesterday, and he was speaking to the draft and speaking to how the Packers, what he asked Rich Eisen specifically, who do you think they were going to draft? And, Rich was, shooting the shit with them, going back and forth. And Chris Brockman, shout out to Brockman, he threw out there that, you guys probably going to take a wide receiver because you haven't taken one in forever. You never took one. And it was funny because LaFleur got, a little snippy, but he corrected him and said, no, we've definitely taken one before. And it was talking about Javon Walker, but he didn't indicate anything. So that should have been a telltale sign for me there because getting Matthew Golden, electric wide receiver, guy that can run routes real well. Not really one of my favorite wide receivers out there in the draft, but in Green Bay, he has the potential to really blow up. They have a history of grooming and growing wide receivers, so shout out to Matthew Golden and the Packers on that selection. Definitely a great splash on draft weekend and opening day of the draft in Green Bay. Number 24, we got the Vikings taking Donovan Jackson, a guard out of Ohio State. I mean, they need linemen. They have suffered in that area. Definitely a great selection in my personal opinion. Number 25, the New York Giants trading with the Houston Texans, getting Jackson Dart. Kind of thought Shedeur Sanders was probably going to go in this spot. But as we've been hearing, Daniel Jeremiah and a lot of guys, they've been calling Jackson Dart Jalen Hurts-esque. I tell people preference let's pump the brakes on that. We said Justin Fields was Jalen Fields, Justin Fields. Justin Fields was going to be Jalen Hurts-esque, and that didn't work out. So let's kind of be a little bit hesitant with this. But Jackson Dart going late in the first round to the Giants. They liked him a lot. They feel like he can improvise. They know their offensive line is offensively garbage. So they're going to have to literally use him to move around in some spots. And they know for a fact they couldn't hinge their future to Russ and Jameis Winston. I mean, let's be honest. If you do that, you're going to be 5-12, maybe worse. Maybe worse. Especially in the NFCs, maybe worse. Number 26, the Falcons trade with the Rams. So we had a lot of trades going late in this, pretty much early and late in this draft. The Falcons have traded with the Rams and selected edge rusher James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I like James Pierce Jr. a lot. And again, I thought this was a spot where Mike Green might fall to. I thought the Falcons were probably kind of in love with his game. Maybe they weren't, obviously. So they got James Pierce Jr. But if you think about it, it really worked out for the Falcons. You got Jalen Walker and you got James Pierce Jr. So you got edge rushers, something that they have lacked in Atlanta for a long time. So definitely a great pick there and great selection for the Falcons. Ravens broke my heart because I knew this guy. When I saw his name was still on the board, I knew he was falling to him. Safety Malachi Starks out of Georgia. I mean, he's going to be playing with Kyle Hamilton. I mean, he fits the Ravens' DNA of what they want as a player. I was hoping he fell to Philly, but it just didn't happen that way. So shout out to Malachi Starks and the Ravens. Number 28, Lions picked up one of the best defensive tackles in college, I thought, last year, Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Just adding to that defensive line, getting Aiden Hutchinson some help. Love that selection. Number 29, Commanders select Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon, offensive tackle. I like Connerly a lot. Connerly was a guy that the Eagles also had some eyes on as well. Connerly is going to be a good offensive tackle, I think. You're going to need to protect Jaden Daniels, especially in the NFC East. You saw in the NFC Championship game, they didn't have the offensive line to protect them, and he got killed. So this is just a no-brainer. Number 30, in my opinion, the best cornerback in the draft. The Bills select Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky. Lockdown corner, ball hawk. I've done a video on him extensively. I thought he was another guy that might potentially fall to Philadelphia, but went to the Bills. After losing Tre'Davious White, after having some of the cornerback play that didn't really work out, Kyer Elam, which eventually he actually got traded right before the draft to the Cowboys. I guess that was one of the substantive trades that Jerry was talking about. But anyway, Maxwell Harrison going to the Bills. Great selection there. Bird game, Fly Eagles Fly, number 31. The Eagles actually, to give you a little context into why this trade actually came about, the Eagles were trying to trade into the 20s to get Jahad Campbell, who was a player they eventually selected in the spot. However, it just didn't work out with the Chargers to make the trade. So Eagles made the trade with the Kansas City Chiefs, trading up one spot from 32 to 31 and swapping a 5th-round pick later in this draft for Jahad Campbell. Let me just say this. I was completely shocked. There were about 4 guys, I thought, him being one of them, and I'm complete honesty. Most people today will lie and say, I knew this guy was going here. I knew this guy was going here. If you would have told me Jahad Campbell was going to slide to Philadelphia, I would not have believed you. I had no belief whatsoever that he was going to not get into the later first round. I thought mid-first round, he was definitely getting picked. I understand the injury concerns. I understand all that. They said the same shit about Nakobe Dean, and we see how he played out. Dealt with an injury in this postseason, but shown to be a good linebacker. This guy, I think, though, is not necessarily here just for Nakobe Dean. I personally think that they got this guy because he can play any position at linebacker. He is a beast. He's a short tackler in the open field. I love the selection. Love the selection. Was shocked to see that he even fell that far. And wrapping up the first round, we're going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs. So, again, I just said swap with the Eagles, so they picked 32nd. They took offensive tackle Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, and what a shock. I mean, after the way that offensive line played in the Super Bowl, were you shocked that they grabbed anything outside of an offensive tackle? There was no way in hell they could tell, Patrick Mahomes this offseason, hey, listen, we're confident that we can get back in this position and win again after that debacle and him getting sacked as many times as he did and just outright fucked up. I mean, you saw it. I don't need to use conjecture. You saw it. So, good selection so far, but essentially, that's going to do it for this episode. I will have another episode coming up talking about my top 10 storyline recap from the first round of the draft going into round 2. I love you guys. I thank you for always plugging in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.